Welcome back to The Merman's Hold by Dinja Hoiting. If this is your first time here, I recommend starting with Chapter 1. You'll find a link in the description below. Chapter 2. The next morning, the sun was already high in the sky by the time Arya and her family made their way down to the beach. The sand was warm under her feet, and the sounds of waves gently lapping at the shore filled the air. It was a perfect day, bright and sunny, with just the right amount of breeze to keep the heat from being overwhelming. Arya took her time, laying out her towel on a smooth patch of sand, adjusting the edges until it was perfectly flat. Her family had already spread out along the beach. The twins were already running towards the water, their excited squeals echoing through the air as they splashed into the shallows. Her parents, ever the picture of relaxed happiness, were setting up parasols and folding chairs just to her right. For a moment, Arya stood still, taking it all in. The clear, blue sky, the gentle sounds of the ocean, the distant call of seagulls. This was what she'd been waiting for. After the exhausting hike the day before, she was more than ready to do nothing but enjoy her book and soak in the warmth of the sun. She sighed contentedly and settled onto her towel, slipping off her sandals and digging her toes into the soft sand. Reaching into her beach bag, Arya pulled out her romance novel she had been eager to return to. She flipped open the book to where she had last left off, letting herself fall back into the world of dashing heroes and sweeping romances. As she read, her mind filled with vivid images of stolen glances and forbidden love, though she occasionally glanced up to check on her siblings. They were chasing each other through the waves, their laughter blending with the sound of the ocean. Time drifted away like the tide. The sun warmed her pale skin, and a gentle breeze played with her hair. She could hear her family's laughter in the background and noticed the twins building a sandcastle, their small hands digging desperately to form a moat. "They'll never save it from the tide," she mumbled to herself with a smile. But still, they tried, enlisting their father into the battle. Watching them, Arya felt a swell of affection for these moments. Their joy was contagious. When the ocean eventually claimed victory over the sandcastle, their mother called them for lunch. A picnic basket set on a large blanket, sandwiches, fresh fruit, and cold canned drinks neatly laid out. The coal box had done its job wonderfully. The five of them gathered, the twins chattering excitedly about their battle, and the sea already planning new ways to build a bigger, better castle next time. Arya smiled as she listened, savoring her sandwich and enjoying the simple pleasure of being surrounded by her family. After lunch, the twins shot off towards the water once more, running at full speed. Just before their feet touched the cool blue liquid, they stopped and turned, beckoning for Arya to join them. "Come on, Arya!" Tommy called, waving wildly with his hand over his head. "You have to play with us, please," Sabrina chimed in, her wide, pleading eyes impossible to resist. Those puppy dog eyes always worked on Arya, and Sabrina knew it. "Just for a little while, we want to show you something cool," Tommy added, bouncing on his feet. Arya sighed, setting her book down with a reluctant smile. All right, but just for a little while," she conceded, getting to her feet. The twins cheered and took off towards the water again, with Arya following at a more leisurely pace. The cool waves felt refreshing against her legs as she stepped in, the water swirling around her ankles. The twins immediately started a game, splashing her and diving into the waves. Arya couldn't help but laugh as she joined in. The weight of the day seemed to melt away as they played together. For the next half hour, they pretended to be pirates on a grand adventure. Each wave became a new challenge, their imaginations wild as they concocted stories of hidden treasures and sea monsters. Arya played along happily, her heart lightened by the twins' infectious laughter. Sure, they could be annoying sometimes, but she loved them dearly. As the twins grew tired, Arya took the chance to float lazily on her back, squinting up at the sun before closing her eyes. The small waves lapped gently at her as she floated, and for a moment she wished she had bought her inflatable lounger. It would have been the perfect way to read her book, but for now she allowed herself a rare moment of stillness, savoring the peace. The sun warmed her skin while the sea cradled her. Opening her eyes, she watched her parents join the twins. Her mother and Sabrina were playing a diving game, while her father, with his usual boundless energy, was tossing Tommy into the air, laughing as he landed with a splash. They were in the shallow part of the water near the shore, but the occasional wave pushed Arya back towards the beach, scraping her against the sand. Smiling to herself, she stood and waded deeper into the sea. But suddenly, a sharp yelp escaped her as something slimy brushed against her foot. Instinctively, she flung herself backwards, pulling her legs up to her chest as her eyes darted down, searching the murky water for what had touched her. Her mother, momentarily pausing from playing with Sabrina, looked up with a mixture of amusement and concern in her eyes. Arya, what's wrong? Something slimy touched me, Arya exclaimed, her gaze still locked on the water below. She couldn't see anything, though. The water was too murky to make anything out. Her mother's laughter rang out. Arya, you're in the ocean! It was probably just a curious fish. It could even be seaweed. Arya hesitated, still scanning the water. Her heart gave a quick thump of unease, but she shook her head, laughing along with her mother. Of course, it was just seaweed, or some harmless fish. Nothing to worry about. Still, she couldn't shake the slight chill that lingered in the back of her mind as she waded further in, the water now up to her waist. A seagull called loudly overhead, and she watched as it veered away, disappearing into the horizon. Come on, Arya, she told herself with a small shake of her head. It's just the ocean. But she couldn't shake the unease that clung to her, a nagging feeling that it wasn't just a fish or seaweed. Something felt off. It was a ridiculous thought, one she knew she should laugh off. But the sensation lingered, heavy, unsettling. Her family's laughter rang out around her, but Arya's focus was entirely on the endless blue stretching out before her. A shiver crept down her spine, her skin prickling with the growing certainty that something was watching her. Deciding she'd rather return to her book than dwell on her thoughts, Arya began swimming back to shore. Only then did she realize how much deeper she drifted while scrambling away from the fish, or whatever it was. The water was up to her chest now, and her feet were no longer able to touch the bottom. With her eyes fixed on her family, she swam steadily towards the shore, watching the twins laugh and splash, oblivious to her creeping dread. Just as she wondered what new game they had started, something cold and strong coiled around her leg, pulling her violently underneath the surface. Arya barely had time to react, no chance to scream, no time to close her eyes, before she was dragged under. Her family's backs were turned, unaware, as she disappeared beneath the water's surface. Her body thrashed instinctively, nails clawing at the thing wrapped around her ankle. It was no fish. She could feel it. Sharp talons dug into her skin. Panic surged through her, every fiber of her being screaming to fight. She kicked and scratched, but the creature's hold was too strong. Her breath was escaping her faster than she could think, and her eyes stung from the salt water as she tried to make sense of what was happening. They were moving fast, her hair streaming behind her like a banner as she was dragged deeper into the ocean. Deeper and deeper. Her lungs burned. She needed air. Now! Kicking wildly, she thrashed against the creature, her desperation fueling her fight until finally its grip loosened and she was free. For a moment, Arya floated in the water, disoriented. Her limbs felt heavy, and her vision blurred as she struggled to figure out which way was up. She kicked and swam frantically, following the small trail of air bubbles she hoped would lead her to the surface. but the surface was too far. She was too slow. Her lungs screamed. Her head throbbed. She needed to breathe, but she couldn't. She wouldn't. She couldn't die. Not like this. She wanted to live, to go home, to see her family again. She fought harder, with every stroke of her arms feeling heavier, more sluggish as she clawed towards the light above. Then she heard it, a voice, soft and strange, echoing through the water. Lankarathi, Zarau Lurin. She couldn't understand. Was it real? Or just her mind playing tricks on her in her final moments? Was it the creature? She didn't know. Couldn't think. Air was the only thing on her mind. She slowly got closer and closer to the surface. Every stroke of her arms, every kick of her exhausted legs brought her nearer, but still, she was so far away. Too far. Her lungs screamed. Her head pounded. Her mouth was on the verge of opening. Just when she thought she was getting closer, she was yanked back down. A clawed hand, colder this time, wrapped around her wrist, pulling her down deeper into the abyss. A gurgled scream escaped her, air bubbles rushing from her mouth. The last of her oxygen was gone. Wide-eyed and terrified, she was sure this was the end. She would drown, and no one would ever find her body. Her vision darkened as her lips sealed against the water's intrusion once more. Her thoughts grew hazy, and then something touched her lips. Her eyes snapped open, bright blue eyes, glowing in the murky water, locked onto hers. She felt lips pressing against her own, but they weren't entirely human. Cold and slimy, they belonged to the creature, forcing a breath of air into her lungs. She tried to scream again, but no sound came, only a soft whimper as the creature's claws dug into her shoulders, its mouth bruising her lips. She was breathing. It was revolting. The air it gave her was warm, and the creature's sharp teeth scraped against her skin, drawing blood. But she was breathing. For a moment she stopped struggling, exhausted and grateful for the air that filled her lungs, even though it came from this terrifying creature. When it finally pulled away, Arya closed her mouth, clinging to the precious oxygen. She glanced upward towards the surface, but before she could make a move, the creature tightened its grip on her wrist and began to swim again, dragging her deeper into the ocean. Every so often it stopped to give her another breath, its lips pressing forcefully against her, keeping her alive. She hated it, hated the way its glowing eyes stared at her, hated the way she had no choice but to accept the air it gave her. She was helpless, her exhausted body too weak to fight anymore. Her ears popped, her head ached, and yet the creature continued to pull her down. She could no longer tell where they were, or how deep they had gone. Her eyes were closed now, her body limp in the creature's hold as it dragged her through the cold, dark water. Then, suddenly, they turned upwards. She didn't know how long they had been descending, but they were rising now, faster and faster, until they broke the surface. Air! She was gasping for air. But she barely had time to register the fact that she could breathe on her own before exhaustion overwhelmed her. She was distantly aware of the strange words spoken just behind her. Aten elira varian. The voice, the same one she had heard beneath the surface, was not quite human, deep and resonant, each syllable vibrating through her bones. Her vision blurred, the world spinning around her as if the sea still clung to her every movement. Glancing over her shoulder, she tried to make out the figure, but her limbs were heavy, her strength fading. Glowing eyes watched her intently, his grip on her waist tightening, preventing her from sinking once more in her exhaustion. The last thing she saw before everything went black was the shimmer of scales and the shadow of something massive moving beneath the water surface.